Hello, my name is Kelly Bluen. Welcome to my mini mandala series. This is episode 76, and I used to do these most Mondays. I did 75 videos, and then I stopped for many months and focused on different things, and now I'm bringing it back. So I just got out my little mandala book, and I thought we would just kind of take a peek. This book started on episode 34, so my other book has the first 33. But look at all of these different little mandalas. So if this is the first one that you're watching, there are so many videos you can go back and enjoy. Look at all of these. So much fun, so many beautiful pieces. All right, here we go. Episode 76. So on each one, I write the episode, I write the date, and then I write a one-sentence journal entry about what's going on in my life or in my heart this week. And I love looking back at my mandalas and reading my sentences because things are happening around us all the time. Big moments, little moments, and it's just kind of fun to go back and reflect a little bit. Okay, so I have this sketchbook. Let me think. I believe it's a 6-inch by 6-inch little notebook. I purchased it at Michael's, the craft store. I also have my Micron pen. This is a PN, plastic nib pen, a graphite pencil, a little piece of scrap paper that I'm going to use like a ruler, and a coin. My coin is a penny, and that is how I begin my mandalas. My hope is that these are things that you learn to create anywhere you are with whatever you have around you. So any piece of paper will work, any pen will work, and any round object. Okay, I like to start with my pencil and I trace this coin somewhere in the center of my paper. I like to do it in pencil in case I want to go back and erase it later. Once I have the coin traced, I draw a horizontal line. And this is where I'm just guessing at what the middle is. I also draw a vertical line. I like to do this without a straight edge because I like my mandalas to look a little bit almost unprofessional. Is that the right word? Like unperfect? I don't know. I like them to be obviously drawn by hand and have little mistakes and little unevenness, so I don't use a straight edge. After I get in my horizontal and vertical lines, I put in my diagonals, and these are a little bit trickier to get even. But once I make my line, I just look and see if these sections are about the same width. If not, I can move my pencil line. Those look pretty good to me, so I think I'm going to leave them. I'll give you a moment to do yours. So in these months that I have not been recording mandalas, I still draw them often on my own. I put them in my notebooks, I put them on papers that I'm working on. I'm just constantly drawing little circular forms and adding shapes around them, adding flower petals. I just stopped recording the weekly ones, but I still draw them all the time because I find them to be very relaxing. Okay, we have our initial circle in there. Now we're going to put in a few more circles, and to do that, I take my little scrap paper and I'm going to put it right in the center, right on that middle spot there. I think sometimes I start up here. It's been so long now I'm forgetting. We're going to start it at the middle. Okay, I want a very small line right, like just a little bit above. Let me zoom in. Just a little bit above the initial one. So I put my line on my paper and on my scrap paper, and now I've got a little mark. Then I'm going to go up about 1.5 pencil widths and do another line. These really don't matter that much as far as, like, they don't have to be exactly where mine are. I think I actually want this one to be 2 pencil widths, so I'm going to erase that. I'm going to go 1, 2. I'm going to make that a little bit wider. I just said it didn't matter and then I changed mine. I apologize. I'm going to do another one that's about a pencil width. Again, I'm marking my scrap paper and my book. Okay, and then I'm going to go to this next line. I'm going to go to the center, and I'm just going to mark all of those spots. See how they're marked on that line? And then I go to the next one, and I mark it. I'm giving all these little dashes all the way around. And then I'm going to take my pencil and very lightly I'm going to connect these little lines with a curve that goes around the first circle. And these do not have to be perfect either. Just giving them a slight curve because it is part of a circle. And I tend to make like little, instead of just going from here to here, I tend to make little lines and I sort of move it as I go. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. If I just try to draw a perfect circle, it doesn't always turn out quite that well, but when I do this little motion, it tends to go better. Okay, I've got one more out here to do. As you get wider, it's more difficult to keep these pretty even, but it's okay. You could always use a compass if you're more comfortable. I just enjoy doing them by hand. I'll give you a moment to catch up. This feels so good to be doing this again. Okay, I'm going to pick up my pen and I'm going to get started. The first thing I'm going to do is trace that first circle that we made with my pen. Zoom in a little bit for you. So I'm just going to go right over that pencil line all the way around. Of course, it's not going to look perfectly circular, and that's okay. Then I'm going to go to this next little thin line I made here, and I'm going to go from this line and I'm going to bump over to this line. So I'm just putting these little bumps in on top of those lines that we made. See how I'm doing that? I'm just going from one line bumping over to the next. You should end up with 8 bumps. And then inside each of those little areas, I'm going to go to the middle of this bump and I'm going to put a line up and a dot. And I imagine this line as if it's coming from the center and then going up. So imagine it coming from the center here and then going out to there. That just helps me keep my lines coming at the correct angles. So right in the middle of each of those bumps, do a little tiny line and a little tiny dot. And then I'm going to do an aura on the inside. An aura is a line that walks beside another line without touching it. So I'm just going to go like this, nice and slow, putting in this really thin little aura. And then in there, I'm going to put the tiniest little dashes. And I'm going very light on my pen. You don't need a lot of ink for this. And keep them really close together to give that really nice texture. And then in the middle, around where all of those points meet, I'm going to put a small circle. And then I'm going to bump out and give this cute little flower. So I'm doing these little bumps in each of those sections and I'm not touching the edge is just kind of floating in the middle. And I'm going to ink in the center. And I'm going to put little lines and little dots all the way around it. So many of my mandalas have floral middles. I just like how that looks. And now I'm going to do another bump, but this time I'm going to touch that edge. So I'm just going back into each section and giving it a little bump and touching those outer edges. Then I'm going to fill in the space in between each of those petals. Some of them are going to be smaller than other sections. Like, look at how tiny that section is compared to the one over here. It's okay, I'm not going to let it bother me. Just enjoying the process. It's a nice, strong, solid middle. Okay, then I'm going to add an aura all the way around these bumps here, and I'm not going to touch down. So I'm giving these little bumps and I'm dipping down into those little crevices, but I'm not touching down. Just giving that whole area there a nice little outline. And then I'm going to fill that with tiny little lines like I did in the middle. Again, giving it that little bit of texture. What a pretty little mandala, just as is. And this is our coin. Look at how small and delicate and pretty it is. We wouldn't even need to add more, but of course we are going to add more. But I love it just like that. All right, we're going to do another petal pattern that I enjoy. So this one, we're gonna go up these lines like this, but then we're gonna bump down, dip, up, and come back down the next line. Let me do that one again. I'm gonna go up that line, bump, dip down, bump up, and then go down the next line. Bump up, dip down, bump up, and go down. If that shape is a little bit difficult for you, then just go up and do a bump and come back down. You don't have to do the little dip part. I love the shape of those petals. Okay. Now on the inside of each of those, I'm going to do an inside aura that starts at the bottom, goes up, follows, and comes back down. Go up, just like you're following a path. You're going to keep those auras similar in width on each one. Make sure you're taking your time, you're enjoying this pen to paper feeling. You're enjoying making art. It's such a great feeling. Okay, now I'm going to draw in this line, the circle that touches those petals. So I'm just tracing over that, touching the top of each petal as I go around. And the further we go out, the more difficult it is to create these circles and trace these lines. So just do your best. And then I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to ink in these little areas that are left over. Sort of the background of each petal. And look how much that makes those stand out. Your spots are probably all going to be different sizes based on how you made your petals, and that's okay. right, how is yours coming along? Inside these little petals, I'm going to match what I did before, which is the line and the dot. So I'm going to do a line and a dot, and then I'm going to do a line and a dot going out to each side of that one and a little bit at an angle. And enjoy this repetitive motion. Okay, once we get that done, I'm going to ask you to do another circular aura. So I like to go almost like a dot to dot where I'm going from one line to the next. So I'm just going to focus on one section at a time. And very narrowly, I'm going to make this little curve that follows that circle. Then I'm going to continue from this line to this line, following that curve. You're welcome to skip this part if this is too difficult, but I like how it challenges my brain. Really makes me focus. It's okay if it's wiggly. It's okay if it's uneven. These mandalas are for you. They're meant to be relaxing, not stressful. All right, did you make it all the way around? Now let's go all the way around that and fill it with little lines like the other layers that we have done. So just little tiny short lines, unless you want to leave yours empty. This is when I feel the most relaxed, is when I can just repeat something over and over without having to be creative or think about what I'm doing next. Focus on breathing. And think about something nice that happened to you today. It's amazing that just little tiny lines like that make something have so much detail. Okay, for this next part, I'm going to take each of these little tiny lines that are in pencil, and I'm going to put a little dot on the halfway point of each one. So it's these little lines that go out, and I'm putting a line, or not a line, I'm putting a dot on the line at the halfway point of each of those. And then we're going to do those little bumps like we did in the beginning around the penny circle that we made. So I'm going to go from one dot to the next, and I'm just going to bump out and touch this final pencil line. So ready? I'm going to go, if you want, you can put a little dot up there in the middle so you know where to bump up and where to come back down. And these don't have to be perfect either. We're just giving these little floral type bumps. And then in these little crevices, I'm going to add a circle in each one. So just nestled right down in there. And then I'm going to do something called a tethered aura, where we're going to aura the line, but it's going to come down and touch. So I'm going to start with this one over here, and I'm going to touch down here underneath that circle, and I'm going to bump up and come back down. Bump up and come back down. So see how I'm just sort of touching down at those circles, giving a little bump and coming back down. Makes me think of buttons on a cushion, how they push that fabric down and make those little divots. And then inside those auras, we're going to do one last set of little tiny lines. I love matching outer elements to inner elements that we have already done, and repeating these lines throughout is just such an easy way to keep that texture going. Okay, and then I'm going to add a little aura around each of these circles and a little curved reflection on the inside. Just adding a little top aura and a reflection. What do you think? Do you like it? Okay, so now at this point, if you want to leave this white part just completely white and empty, you can. Or if you want to repeat these elements where we did the line and a dot, line and a dot, you could do one under each bump, or you could do three, like one straight up, and then one on each side. I like just the one. I think I'm just gonna leave it like that. Okay, you did it. All right, I'm going to initial mine. I like to initial mine off to the side. KJB. Then I'm going to erase my lines and do a little bit of shading. That's another reason we have the pencil. So I'm going to take my eraser. This is a kneaded eraser. And it's just a great eraser to pick up that lead, that pencil, without leaving any residue. I can link it below in the description of the video if you would like to get one. They're just on Amazon or at any art store. Okay, I have all of those lines off of there. And now I like to add a little bit of shading just to give it some dimension. So I'm going to go around this little dark spot here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of graphite around that whole area. And then I forgot to grab a blending tool. This is called a tortillon. This is just rolled paper. You can get these at zentangle.com. You can get them on Amazon or any art store. Forgot to show that in our supplies. So I'm just softening this graphite a little bit, and it's just going to make almost like a little shadow there. Then I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to go just a tiny bit around the outside of the circle where we traced the penny. Just a little bit all the way around it, right up against that line. And then with my little blending tool, I'm going to kind of soften it, but also pushing it out into that white area just a little bit. So I'm not pushing it into the lines, I'm pushing it out into that white area. And that gives that a little bit of depth. And now I'm going to go on the outside of these little bumps that we made. So I'm just putting the graphite right tight against that line all the way around. And then with my blending tool, I'm going to soften it and push it up into those petals just a little bit. And look at how this mandala now is feeling very layered, like things are sitting on top of each other. Okay, now I'm going to go around this outside edge of the circle here. Just a little bit all the way around, again, keeping that graphite really close to that line. Taking this blending tool, I like to lay it almost flat on its side and not up and down, kind of flat on the side. And I'm softening it, but also pushing it a little bit out into that white area. You don't want to fill that white space, you just want to give this illusion of a little shadow. Look how pretty that looks. If you would like to, you can go around the whole outside edge as well, and that'll make the whole thing kind of pop up off the paper. I'm not going to do that today because I just kind of like having the shading on the inside. I like how nice and clean this outside area looks. All right, that was episode 76. Write the date that you created it and write 1 or 2 sentences about what's going on in your life, what's going on in your heart, and just kind of what you were thinking about in these moments. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you again next Monday. Thank you. Bye-bye.